Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Astotara Satashri Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jainati Leela Parishtom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Astotara Satashri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Brajabhumi Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dhama Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamunamai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivara Dhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivara Dhari. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Gaura Premanandi. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai. So welcome everyone to today's class. We're going to be studying Chaitanya Charitamrita and Madhya Lila, chapter 8. This chapter is called Talks Between the Lord and Ramananda Roy. We've been doing this chapter for a while. It's a long chapter. We're already on text 207. The chapters in CC are very long. You don't get 200 and something in Bhagavatam. So today we'll cover 275 to 277. But just for some context, I'll go back a little bit. So we're already at the part where the questions and answers between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy have concluded. This was a long series where Lord Chaitanya was asking many questions to his devotee, Ramananda Roy, and Ramananda Roy was explaining everything. So it's a little bit of a reverse scenario. Usually the devotee asks the Lord questions and the Lord answers, but here the Lord was asking the devotee questions and the Lord was inspiring the devotee from within his heart to give all the right answers. Even Ramananda Roy was like, I don't know what I'm saying. You're just using me as your instrument here. I'm totally aware that you're just like making me say whatever you want me to say, and I don't know why you're doing this, but it's pretty ecstatic. So like that. So at the conclusion of this, all these ecstatic questions and answers, then Ramananda Roy, he's looking at Lord Chaitanya, but he's not seeing Lord Chaitanya. All of a sudden he's seeing Shyamasundar. He's seeing Krishna, the dark complexioned cowherd boy with, curly hair and playing a flute and peacock feather and all that. So he says that in text 268. He says, At first I saw you appear like a sannyasi, but now I'm seeing you as Shamasundar, the cowherd boy. And he says, I see that you're holding a flute to your mouth and your lotus eyes are moving very restlessly due to various ecstasies. I actually see you in this way, and this is very wonderful, my Lord. Please tell me without duplicity what is causing this. So he's like, how am I seeing this? I'm seeing you as Krishna. How is this possible? How is this happening? So then Lord Chaitanya, it's very interesting how he replies, because he totally dismisses the fact that he actually is Krishna, and that's why and that he's showing that to Ramananda Rai, because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead with all of his potencies, but he comes in the form of Lord Chaitanya because he wants to experience what it's like to be a devotee. So he's very much, in this appearance, he himself wants to forget that he's a devotee. And so he also generally covers everybody else's awareness that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that they only see him as a devotee. But occasionally he reveals his true nature. Occasionally he gives some, by his mercy, he gives a devotee some little glimpse to that he's Krishna. Or he also reveals other incarnations like Satbhuj, the six-armed form, or Nrsimhadev or Varahadev. He reveals these different Vishnu Tattva forms. So this is one instance where he's revealing his form of Krishna to Ramananda Rai. And when Ramananda Rai asks him about it, like, how is this happening? Lord Chaitanya says, it's because you have such a deep love for Krishna. And so it's the nature of love that you see your beloved everywhere. So, it's nothing to do with me. It's all to do with you. It's because you love Krishna so much, everywhere you look, you just see Krishna. And so because you happen to be looking at me right now, you're seeing me as Krishna. So that's just because of your love. It's nothing to do with who I am or where I'm at. So then Lord Chaitanya continues talking about how a devotee on a very advanced spiritual platform sees everything as the Lord. So now he's going to go into a beautiful exposition about how the Mahabhagavat, how a very advanced devotee of Krishna sees the world. And the way they see the world is that they see Krishna everywhere they look. They see Krishna in everything. So I'm going to kind of break this down, and Lord Chaitanya does, into 4 different ways that a great devotee, a Mahabhagavat devotee, sees Krishna everywhere. So this is nice for us because we're trying to see Krishna everywhere, see Krishna in everything, see everything in Krishna, as is the reality that Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. So we want to be Krishna conscious. And Krishna consciousness means conscious of Krishna and conscious of his presence everywhere and in everything. So this is very helpful, that even if we're not on this platform, we can aspire to see Krishna everywhere. And here we get some clues. So 4 different ways that the Mahabhagavat sees Krishna everywhere. So the first indication we get in text 274. This is the last verse from, the last class on CC covered these verses already, so I'm just sort of recapping here. And 274 was the last one. So anyways, we'll read the Bengali for 274. You can put it up there. This is a really nice verse that Prabhupada quotes in different places in Srimad Bhagavatam also when he's talking about the vision of the Mahabhagavat. Let's just say it together. Stavara jangama deke na deki taramurti Sarvatra haya nija ishtadeva spurti. Translation: the Mahabhagavat, the advanced devotee, certainly sees everything mobile and immobile, but he does not exactly see their forms. Rather, everywhere he immediately sees manifest the form of the Supreme Lord. So, in the purport here, Prabhupada talks about how the first way that we can see Krishna everywhere is seeing that everything is Krishna's energies. So he quotes this verse from the Bhagavad Gita 7:4 that Bhumir apo nalo vayu kammano buddhir evacha ahankaram itiyam me bina prakritir ashtada. That earth, water, fire, air, mind, intelligence, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, that these 8 things are Krishna's separated material energies. And then the next verse is aparayami tastvanyam prakritim vidhime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat. That besides these, O mighty Arjuna, there's another superior energy of mine which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this inferior material energy. So there's the material energy, which is all the, things that are made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, gross and subtle forms. And then there's the soul, the spiritual energy, which is the superior energy. And so everything that we see in this world is a combination of those 2 things. You see, there's different manifestations of earth, or water, or fire, or air, or then there's mind, our thoughts, our feelings, so those are all mind, and then intelligence, our creative functions, our discernment, and then false ego, the false sense of self by which we identify with the body. So these are all the gross and subtle forms in which Krishna's energies pervade and interact in this world, and then there's the soul. So whatever we see is either some combination of Krishna's material energies or Krishna's spiritual energies. And so everything is Krishna's energy, and so everything that we see is ultimately Krishna, because there's no difference between the energy and the source of that energy. It's kind of like, when you see a painting, if you know the painter, right? Like, for example, one of our devotee painters is Pushkar Prabhu, and he lives in Alachua. So I lived in Gainesville, and we would see him every Sunday when we went to temple. So you know Pushkar Prabhu, you have a conversation with him, and then you see his paintings. Oh, that's a Pushkar painting. Yeah, I know Pushkar Prabhu. We had a conversation. We talked about this, that. So every time you see a painting by Pushkar, I see a painting by Pushkar Prabhu, I'll just remember Pushkar Prabhu because he's the painter. That's just natural, right? Or you see a book. You see one of Prabhupada's books. All you need to do is see the book and you remember Prabhupada because you know about Srila Prabhupada and you know that's his book. And so the author is kind of present in the book. Or like a system. You see some system working in the world, whether it's a management system in a corporation, whether it's a transportation system in the city, whether it's a system of action and reaction, the laws of karma. Then if you know the person who made that system, then you'll remember the person. So everything that's happening is going on by Krishna's will, or at least by Krishna's sanction. And so whatever systems we see that are working in this world, we can understand that Krishna has somehow, either directly or indirectly, designed those systems. Like when we see the sunrise in the morning, we can remember Krishna because that's Krishna's system. This is how he structured this, how he designed the universe. When we see that the seasons are coming and going, so now we're ending summer, we're moving into autumn, we can remember Krishna because this is his system. He set up this rotation. The cycle of birth and death. Babies are being born, people are dying. This is Krishna's system. We can remember Krishna in all of these things because he is the energetic source of all these energies that are working around us. So that's one way that we can remember Krishna. Seeing everything as Krishna's energies. So then the next verse, 275, here's where we're starting the new section. So verse doesn't have a purport, I think. No. Okay, so we'll just read this one, and then the one that we'll repeat is the one that has the purport, which is the next one. Sarva bhuteshu ya pashyad Bhagavad bhavamatmanaha Bhutani bhagavatyatmani Esha bhagavatotama. A lot of bhagavats there. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, a person advanced in devotional service sees within everything the soul of souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he always sees the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes and understands that all things are situated in him. So this is another way that we can see Krishna everywhere, is by perceiving that he is the soul of all souls. In other words, he's the super soul. So Krishna expands himself in this world. He first of all expands himself to create the material world, and then he again expands himself to enter into the universe, and then he again expands himself to enter into the heart of all living entities and within every single atom of this universe. So, he says that in the Bhagavad Gita that Ishvara sarvabhutanam riddesher arjuna tishtati brahmayam sarvabhutani yantra rudani mayaya. That he says, I'm seated in everyone's... No, that's another verse. He says, I'm seated... He said, Ishvara sarvabhutanam, that I'm within the hearts of all living entities who are wandering in this material universe, seated on a machine made of the material energy. So this is kind of going back to this combination of matter and spirit, that the soul is spirit, it's the superior energy of Krishna, seated within the material body, which is like a machine, which is Krishna's material energy. But within all of that is the super soul. So that's what he's saying, that I'm situated within the heart of everyone. And from that position, Krishna is directing and protecting and maintaining and inspiring everyone to do what they're doing. You know, like all the animals, they're born and they just immediately know, you know, what their food is, what they need to do, how to build a house. Like there are these birds in Mayapur that make these amazing nests that they hang from they're not like situated like in the branches of the trees, but they actually hang from the tree, and they weave these, they're called weaver birds. They weave the grass in such a way that it wraps around the branch and it hangs, and then they weave this kind of oval thing that's hanging from like a thread on the tree, and they're like blowing in the wind. They look like, you know, Christmas tree ornaments or something hanging off the tree, but they're quite big, and the entrance is in the bottom. But then they make it in such a way that the entrance is kind of on the side, and then, if sometimes one will fall like after a storm, and you can open it up and see how it is. So there's like a hole, but of course the hole's in the bottom, so you may think, well, how do the eggs not fall out? Because they have this thing that there's like anyways, you go in, and then you go over this, and then there's a dip down, and then there's like the nest is there, so that the babies would have to go up and then out and down the hole. Anyways, it's just like, it's amazing. How do they know how to do that? Like, what a feat of engineering, right? And how do they know how to do that? It's the super soul. Like, they don't go to school, you know, to learn these things. We have to go to school to learn how to like construct a house and things. But they do these amazing works of engineering just using simple, available products from nature. They don't even have hands, and they just weave this thing with their beaks. So, yeah. And so if you look at any, how do bees know how to make a beehive? How do they know to go to flowers and get honey? How do they know what to do with it? It's all the super soul. So we scientists call it instinct, but actually it's not instinct. Instinct is prompted by the super soul. It's the dictation of the super soul that now you need to do this. Now you need to go there. You need to get this and bring it here and do this. So the super soul is also guiding us in that way. The difficulty we have as humans is that we have a very strong sense of independence. We have a greater allotment of free will, so we can actually misuse our free will to override the dictation of the Paramatma. So we can make bad choices. Animals don't make bad choices. They eat what they're supposed to eat. They live how they're supposed to live. They mate with who they're supposed to mate with, and they raise their babies in a way that they're supposed to raise them. Whereas humans do all kinds of irresponsible, unnatural, self-harming things due to misuse of our free will. So that's why we need to be educated. We need to be educated to know how to properly use our free will. And that education, if we're educated according to Shastra, then that education enables us to tune into the dictation of the super soul and to also receive direct instructions from the external representation of the Supersoul, which is the spiritual master. So by the combination of the voice from within, inspiring us from within, which is Krishna, and then from outside the spiritual master, who is the representative of Krishna, and the Shastras, which are the words of Krishna, then we can make proper use of our free will and make actual progress on the path, on the spiritual path, and proper use of this material, this human form of life. So that's the second way of seeing Krishna everywhere, is seeing Krishna in the hearts of everyone. And when we see Krishna in the hearts of everyone, that gives us a reason also to honor everyone. Because any being in any form of life is actually honorable and even worshipable because the super soul is there. So there's one statement in Bhagavatam that when we pay obeisances to a person, we're also paying obeisances to the super soul. So we could pay obeisances to anyone, any living entity, even a flea, because we can always pay obeisances to the super soul within the heart of that person. So even if you don't respect someone, you can still pay obeisances to them because the super soul is there, and then we get the benefit. But of course, it's better to respect everyone. So yeah. And what to speak of every atom, that's like just a, like mind-blowing concept that the Lord is in every single atom, every little particle of dirt on the ground, every particle of air that we breathe. Like, how is that even possible? That's like next level transcendental vision, seeing that. And yeah, so Krishna is there. And Mahabhagavats, they're aware of Krishna's presence and everything. So let's go to the next verse, text 276. This is a longer one, but this one we'll repeat a few times. Vanalatas tadava atmani vishnum vyanjayantya eva pushpa paladya Pranata bhara vitapa madhudhara Prema hishtatana vavrishu sma Vanalatas tadava atmani vishnum Vyanjayantya eva pushpa phaladya Pranata bhara vitapa madhudhara Prema hishtatana vavrishu sma. Please chat. Vanalatas tadava atmani vishnum Vyanjayantya eva pushpa phaladya Pranata bhara vitapa madhudhara Marishtatana vavrishu sma. Vanalatas tadava atmani vishnum Vyanjayantya eva pushpa phaladya Pranatabara vitapamadudara Preme rishtatanava vishusma Vanalatastarava atmani vishnum Vyanjayantya eva pushpa phaladya Pranatabara vitapamadudara Rishtatanava vavrishusma. Let's do the word for word. Let's do this all together. Vanalata, the herbs and plants. Tadava, the trees. Atmani, in the Supreme Soul. Vishnum, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vyanjayantya, manifesting. Eva, like. Pushpa pala adya, filled with luxuriant fruits and flowers. Pranata bhara, bowed down because of loads. Vitapa, the trees. Madhudara, showers of honey. Premarishta, inspired by love of Godhead. Tanava, whose bodies. Vavrishu, constantly reigned. Sma, certainly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The plants, creepers, and trees were full of fruits and flowers due to ecstatic love of Krishna. Indeed, being so full, they were bowing down. They were inspired by such deep love for Krishna that they were constantly pouring showers of honey. In this way, the gopis saw all the forests of Vrindavan. So we're talking here about how the Mahabhagavat sees the world. So the greatest Mahabhagavats are the gopis of Vrindavan, and this is how they see the world. And this is indicating another way that we can see Krishna in everything, is by seeing that everyone is serving Krishna. So I'll read the purport here. This verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:35-9, is one of the songs the gopis sang during Krishna's absence. In Krishna's absence, the gopis were always absorbed in thought of him. Similarly, the Mahabhagavat, the advanced devotee, sees everything as potentially serving the Lord. Srila Rupa Goswami states, Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambani vastuna mumukshubi parityago vairagyam palgukatyate. The advanced devotee does not see anything as unconnected with Krishna. Unlike the Mayavadi philosophers, a devotee does not see the material world as false, because he knows that everything in the material world is connected to Krishna. A devotee knows how to utilize everything in the service of the Lord, and this is characteristic of the Mahabhagavat. The gopis saw the plants, creepers, and forest trees loaded with fruits and flowers and ready to serve Krishna. In this way, they immediately remembered their worshipable Lord, Sri Krishna. They did not simply see plants, creepers, and trees the way a mundaner sees them. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So far, the first way of seeing Krishna everywhere in the world is what? That everything is Krishna's energies, material or spiritual energies, yeah. And then the second way was? The super soul in the heart of everyone and every atom. And now the third way is? See that everyone is somehow or other serving Krishna. Yeah, so this is the So the gopis are just walking through the forest and saying, oh, these trees are serving Krishna by producing flowers, right? Every tree produces flowers and leaves and fruits in due course of time. But the gopis are saying, no, they're serving Krishna. This is their service to Krishna. It's producing flowers for Krishna, producing fruits for Krishna, and giving shade for Krishna, and like this. They're seeing. So the Mahabhagavat sees that everyone is serving Krishna. This is something very amazing. And we hear about this, there's like another word for Mahabhagavat is an Uttama Adhikari devotee. So an Uttama Adhikari devotee is one who sees that everyone is basically a pure devotee except oneself. Whereas the Madhyam Adhikari makes distinction between, okay, this person is a devotee that I can just open up and be friends with. This is a non-devotee or an envious person. Or this is a non-devotee who's innocent and I should try to give them Krishna consciousness, share Krishna consciousness with them. And then this is a non-devotee who's envious. I should stay away from them because they're a demon or whatever, not a nice person. So they make distinctions like that, that there are some people that are serving Krishna and others who are not serving Krishna. But the Uttama Adhikari sees everyone as a servant of Krishna, that everyone is just inherently a servant of Krishna, is actually serving Krishna in everything that they do. And they, out of humility, they see that only themselves are not serving Krishna. So this is something almost inconceivable to us, right? But this is the vision of the Mahabhagavat, that even the trees are serving Krishna, the animals are serving Krishna, just everybody is serving Krishna. So how is this even happening? One thing is that, like we were talking about, that Krishna is controlling everything. That there's a system of the laws of karma, action and reaction, and that's all happening by the will of Krishna. So the fact that people are experiencing, having certain experiences in life, undergoing reactions for their activities, that's what Krishna wants them to do, right? That's kind of, they're following. It's like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 4:11, he says, Mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvashaha, that everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Kunti. So everyone is following Krishna's path means that everyone is living their lives in a way that is directed by Krishna or sanctioned by Krishna. So no one is acting independently in this world. Everything is under Krishna's control. So in that way you can see that everyone is serving Krishna because they're living out their life the way that Krishna is making it play out for them. So like that. But another way that we can see this, another way that we can, maybe a more practical way, is to see how everybody can potentially be engaged in Krishna's service, or that everything can be potentially used in Krishna's service in the sphere of yukta vairagya. So we don't see anything disconnected from Krishna. And that's, nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchite. That without being, so nirbandha means that we're not attached. So I'm not attached to this thing, nirbandha, but Krishna sambandhe, I can see how it can be connected to Krishna. Like it may not, I may not have any connection to it, but it can be connected to Krishna, and so I'm going to be that vehicle by which this thing becomes reconnected to Krishna. And that applies to things of this world, like all the things of this world that we can use in Krishna's service, like our cars, our phones, our laptops, our things, and it also applies to people, that everyone can potentially be engaged in Krishna's service. So if we're walking down the street and we see a soul who is not currently apparently acting as a devotee, then we can see that but this person has a potential to serve Krishna. So let me try to awaken that potential in them. Let me try to bring them to the service of Krishna and remind them who they really are, because deep down they are a servant of Krishna. And that's part of, the way that Mahabhagavat sees that this person is inherently a servant of Krishna. They are an eternal blissful soul full of knowledge. Every living being is essentially a servant of Krishna. But they're just temporarily disconnected. So it's like, like the nature of this lamp is to give light. But if it's disconnected from the source of power, then it's dark. So that's not what it exists for. That's not its nature. Its nature is to give light. So in the same way that we are, our nature is to serve Krishna. But when we are disconnected from Krishna, then we become ignorant. Our life becomes full of darkness and ignorance. But that's not our nature. Our nature is that we're full of illumination, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. So we just need to reconnect. And so that's how the Uttama Adhikar sees that this person is actually a pure devotee of Krishna. They're full of knowledge, full of bliss. They're an eternal, ecstatic soul, full of love and devotion for Krishna. They're just a little unplugged at the moment. We need to plug them in. As soon as we plug them in, as soon as we flip the switch, then everything is just going to turn on. Their bliss, their knowledge, their eternality, everything is just going to be switched on. and their real self is going to manifest. So that's the way that the Mahabhagavat sees everyone and everything in this world. That's the third way, anyway. That they see everyone as serving Krishna or potentially serving Krishna. Yeah. And that our role, the role is to basically reconnect. And the things, like for example, money, devotees, we say Lakshmi. So why do we call money Lakshmi? Because it's wealth is like fortune, and Lakshmi is the goddess of fortune, but also Lakshmi is the eternal consort of Narayan. So what we're supposed to do is reconnect Lakshmi with Narayan. So go out there and get all the money of the world and use it in Krishna's service, because that's what Lakshmi is meant for. Her purpose of her existence is to serve Krishna. So yeah, that's part of our mission is to reconnect Lakshmi with Narayan and all the things that Lakshmi can buy with Narayan, because everything is meant for the service of Narayan or Krishna. Okay, so let's go. This is the last verse that we'll do, is text 277. And this gives us the fourth way by which a devotee sees Krishna everywhere. So, Radha Krishna Tomar Maha Premahaya. Radha Krishna Tomara Maha Premahaya. Yahan Tahan Radha Krishna Tomare Spuraya. The translation, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "My dear Raya, you are an advanced devotee and are always filled with ecstatic love for Radha and Krishna. Therefore, whatever you see, anywhere and everywhere, simply awakens your Krishna consciousness." So this is the fourth way to see Krishna everywhere, is that the Mahabhagavat, for a Mahabhagavat, everything is like a stimulus to remember Krishna. Everything is like an udipana, as Rupa Goswami calls it, a stimulus. So Lord Chaitanya is saying that because you love Krishna, everything that you see, whatever you see, just reminds you, just awakens your Krishna consciousness. It stimulates more Krishna consciousness. So we see that, like the gopis, also another good example of this, that when they're walking through the forest, they would see a tamal tree. And tamal trees that are dark, they're blackish, the bark is blackish. So they see the tamal tree and they remember Krishna. And they would think that the tamal tree is Krishna, and they would, "Oh, Krishna," and they would run and they would embrace the tamal tree thinking that it's Krishna. So like that. And yeah. Or they would see a storm cloud in the sky, that storm cloud color, darkish, blackish blue, and they would remember Krishna. Or they would see lightning flashing in the sky and they would remember Krishna's flashing, shiny yellow dhoti, blowing in the breeze, or flashing here, going here and there as he runs along through the pasturing grounds of Vrindavan. Or they see a peacock or a peacock feather. They find a peacock feather on the ground and they remember Krishna, because Krishna always wears a peacock feather. Or they'll see a lotus flower in the Yamuna and they'll remember Krishna, because everything about Krishna is like a lotus flower, basically. There's that nice verse that Queen Kunti sings in the first canto, 8th chapter. And she says, Nama Pankaja Nab, what is it? Nabaya. Naba Pankaja Nabaya. So Pankaja means lotus. Nama Pankaja Nabaya. That I offer my obeisances to Krishna, whose navel is like a lotus flower. Nama Pankaja Malane. So that wears a garland, mala, made of lotus flowers. And then Nama Pankaja Netraya, or Netrana, that his eyes, netra means eyes. I offer my obeisances to Krishna, whose eyes are like lotus petals. Namaste Pankajangraye, that I offer my obeisances to Angraye means feet, whose feet are have the impression, or the symbol of the lotus is actually, I'm saying engraved, but it's like it's there. It's one of the symbols on Krishna's lotus feet. So All the different parts of Krishna's body are like lotus flowers. So if the gopis see lotus flower, they immediately remember Krishna's feet, Krishna's navel, Krishna's eyes, Krishna's everything, the lotus flower garland that he wears. So this is the way that Mahabhagavat sees the world, that whatever they see, they just remember Krishna. It awakens their remembrance of Krishna. And when I was teaching school at Sri Mayapur International School in Mayapur Dham, I was teaching the high school students Bhakti Shastri. And after we studied, there's a couple of sections of Bhagavad Gita where Krishna gives indications of different ways to remember him by seeing the things of this world, where he says, I'm the light of the sun, and of rivers, I'm the Ganga, of mountains, I'm the Himalayas, of fish, I'm the shark, and like this, he goes through all the different ways that we can remember him when we see things. So then after we studied those chapters, it's chapter 7 and chapter 10, then I told the students we're going to go for a walk in which we're going to see Krishna everywhere. And I said, so the process is this, that you have to bring a notebook and a pencil, and we're going to walk. It's going to be like an hour-long walk, and we're just going to walk slowly, stop at different places, and just observe what we see, and note down everything that reminds you of Krishna. And you can't say anything. It has to be completely silent, Mona Vrata, walk. So we did that, and it was in Mayapur. So for those of you who are familiar with Mayapur, we started at the temple right after Darshan Arti, and then we went down that footpath that goes past the Gurukul and the elephant shelter, and then we took a right onto Tarampur Road and went down to the Jalangi Ghat there, and then we kept going around. We went on that nice little footpath that passes up through, it goes along the course of the Jalangi, and there's all these trees where they tap, the date palm trees where they get the date palm. They make the date palm gur from that. And then we turned back across the fields there and came out back on the ISKCON land by the Goshala, and then to school. And then everybody, so it was really good. Everyone was writing. And then when we got back to the classroom, then I said, okay, what did you all find? And they were like so ecstatic. I mean, they were ecstatic as anything. And they had written down like 50 different things, And we wrote them all on the board, and we noted them all down. And it was just like everything that they saw practically was, they could think of some way that it was connected with Krishna, or reminded them of Krishna, or a pastime of Krishna, or something. They saw some logs lying along the side of the road, and they were like, oh, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. They were carved from logs. Or they saw a boat that was there in the Jalangi, and they're like, oh, Krishna's boat pastime that we just had there in the pool in the Kalachangi Park. Or, the sun was coming up, so Krishna's sun is Krishna's eye by which he sees the world and gives light and life to the world. And all these different things. There are just like so many things. So what we learned is that if you're really looking for Krishna, you can see him. We see what we're looking for. It's just like with people, if we're looking for good qualities, we'll see so many good qualities. If we're looking for faults, we'll see so many faults. Whatever we're looking for, we'll see. So if we're looking for Krishna, if we really want to see Krishna in the world, then we can see him. Krishna will show himself through everything and anything. And so this is, Krishna wants us to see him in the world. And this is the goal of yoga. That's what Krishna says in the chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. He says that in 6:29, he says, a true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the Supreme Lord, everywhere. And the next verse he says, for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So these are two really beautiful verses that show that the result of seeing Krishna everywhere is that Krishna sees us everywhere. When we see Krishna, when we're looking for Krishna, trying to see Krishna, then he reciprocates by seeing us, by being attentive to us and our needs and our spiritual advancement, and he helps us in so many ways. And he protects us so that we'll never stop seeing him, so that we'll never again become bewildered by Maya, by Maya's influence, and Maya will never be able to make us forget him the way we forgot him. And Prahlad Maharaj says that this is the goal of life. He says in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:755, in this material world, to serve the lotus feet of Govinda and to see him everywhere is the only goal of life. This is the only goal of life. You know, we set so many goals for ourselves. I want to achieve this. All of our, New Year's resolutions and Kartik Vratas and all the things that we want to achieve. And oftentimes, we have material goals that I want to earn this much. I want to, pay off my mortgage by this date. I want to, get this degree by this date. I want to, get married around this time in my life. And, we have all these goals that we set for ourselves, all the things that we want to attain and achieve in this world. But Prahlad Maharaj is saying that to serve the lotus feet of Govinda and to see him everywhere is the only goal of life, the only thing that we should be aspiring for. And everything else should be accepted to the degree that it assists us in that goal, that it supports us in making progress towards that goal of life, of seeing Krishna everywhere. So, of course, we're not on that level yet of seeing Krishna everywhere. We have a lot of work to do. And that's what, and it's not easy, right? We see it's not easy. We tend to just see material things and forget Krishna, right? We forget Krishna a lot, unfortunately. So in those verses in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is telling Arjuna, that the true yogi sees me everywhere, and you just have to control your mind and think of me at all times, and always think of me, become my devotee, all that. Then Krishna says, Arjuna says that Krishna is very difficult. This is very difficult to control the mind. It's difficult to remember you all the time and see you everywhere, because the mind is just all over the place. For 1 minute it'll focus on you, or for a split second, and then it'll just go to something else. It's so chanchala. It's like the wind. To control the mind is more difficult than the wind. And Krishna, he responds, and he says, yes. He says in 6:35, he says, asamshayam mahabaho mano durni graham chalam. He says, asamshayam, without a doubt, Arjuna, this mind is difficult to control. It's durni graham, difficult to control, and it's chalam, it's flickering. It's always going somewhere. But then he says, abhyasena tu konteya. But, tu means but. And abhyas means practice. He says, but by practice and vairagyena chagrihyate. Vairagya means detachment. Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji ki jai. He says, but by practice and detachment, it's possible. It can be controlled. You can come to think of me and see me everywhere. It just requires some practice. So we have to really practice remembering Krishna. And how do we do that? By chanting his holy names, by hearing about him, by seeing him here in the temple, beautiful forms of Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji, Jagannath Bali Subhadra, Shri Shri Gauranitai. And when we see him, then we're going to remember him. Of course, we may not be able to see him everywhere, but at least when we look at Radha Kalachandji, hopefully we can see him. Hopefully we're not that spaced out that even standing in front of the deity we're seeing something else. At least try to focus and see the deity. While we're chanting the holy names, try to feel Krishna's presence in his name. When we're hearing about Krishna, try to really tune in and see Krishna in our mind's eye as we're hearing some pastime. Visualize that pastime in the mind and try to hold on to that vision as long as we can. Remember it throughout the day, like that. And whenever throughout the day we can also remember, this beautiful Radha Kalachandji and the specifics. The white swans on the purple clothes and the beautiful contrast of that, and this nice blue fan in his turban, and everything. Yeah, the way that the particulars about the way he's dressed, the way he looks, the paintings on his transcendental form. And try to remember that and go back to that throughout the day within your mind. And this is how we can come to remember. Because basically we've forgotten Krishna for so long, we're like a person with amnesia. That we actually have a relationship with Krishna. We have an eternal relationship with Krishna. We have love for Krishna. We have attraction for Krishna, but we've just forgotten it all. It's just like, there's this movie about this young couple. They just got married. And just a few weeks or months after their marriage, the wife gets in a car accident and it gets a bad head injury and she forgets everything. She gets total amnesia and she forgets her husband. And then he, approaches her and she's like, "Who are you? Just get away from me. Don't touch me." And he's like, "Whoa." So then it's like this whole process by which he has to, he's determined, to bring back their relationship. They're just newly married, and he loves her and, but she's, it's very tragic for him. So basically he just does everything he can to remind her of who she is and what they shared together and their life together. And so that's what the process of bhakti is. It's to remind us of who we are and who Krishna is and of our life together and all the things that we share together and the love that we have for each other. So the process for doing this is what he did, and what generally they do if somebody has like amnesia after an injury or something, is that they expose the person to all the things. Like they'll listen to songs that they enjoyed listening to together. They'll listen to that music. So we listen to the songs from the spiritual world, right? Hare Krishna Kirtan. Like the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is practically the national anthem of Goloka. It's like the song that they're always singing in the spiritual world. So by singing that song, that same old song that we used to always listen to and sing and love, then that's hopefully going to jog our memories and make us remember, oh yeah, I once lived in this place where they would always sing this song. Or by hearing about the activities of the spiritual world, then hopefully we'll start to remember that, oh yeah, I have a place in those activities, that I have a part to play there, I have a service to perform in this pastime. And not just hearing about them, but actually doing them. Like the activities of devotional service, like, sitting down and making a garland for the deities. It's like, that's what we used to do. That's like what souls do in Goloka, is they make garlands for Radha and Krishna. They cook for Radha and for the divine couple. They serve them. They dress them. They, do so many services. So we try to do those same services. Observe, like the pastimes that they have, like swinging them on the swing. We observe that pastime, like making all the arrangements for their boat pastime. These are things that we do eternally, and we're just trying to, although we don't have attachment to them, but hopefully by doing them, we'll remember that, yeah, this is what I do. And then, and then discussing the moods and the values and the etiquettes and the behavior of people in the spiritual world. Right? We learn that from Shastra, how Krishna relates with his eternal associates, how they relate with each other, how they treat others. So by hearing, we just need to keep hearing all of these things and singing those old songs from the spiritual world and doing the activities of the spiritual world and, looking at, seeing things, like seeing depictions, illustrations, like the paintings on the wall, and then gradually we'll remember by Krishna's mercy also. We'll start to remember who we really are. And then we'll start to see Krishna everywhere. So so these 4 ways. What's the first way? Of seeing Krishna everywhere? Krishna's energies. Everything is Krishna's energies. Okay, what else? That Krishna is the soul of all souls. He's a super soul in everyone's heart. Third way? Everyone's serving Krishna either now or they have the potential to do so. The fourth way? Everything we see stimulates awakens our remembrance of Krishna. And so we just need to perform the practices of bhakti, and we can actually come to the stage of seeing the world the way a Mahabhagavat sees it. We can actually attain this vision of the world by the mercy of the Lord and the acharyas who have given us this amazing process of devotional service. So I'll stop there. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mother Sucharya. Or I can repeat it. Oh, here he comes. Just wait a sec.
I just have a small question. It's like a detail. It's not like philosophical. But the previous verse, if Ajit could bring it up, the previous verse where it describes about the trees and the flowers, the plants.
276.
So in that verse, Srila Prabhupada translates, if I could look at the translation, the word-for-word translation. Okay, so there it is. Prabhupada calls the trees Tarava, and then he also calls the trees, go down a little bit, please. He also calls them Vitapa. So I'm just wondering why Prabhupada is using these, the same word, but he has different description. So I'm just wondering what that is. Is it like trees with fruits? Is it trees with flowers? Is it something? Did you notice anything about that?
I don't know. I'd have to look up. I know Tara, like Taru Vanchakalpa, Tarubhyascha. They're synonyms. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have a Sanskrit scholar here, Prerna, who's telling us that these in Sanskrit there are many different synonyms for trees,
Right.
and that taru means means tree, and vitapa also means tree. So it's two different words.
And then I just wanted your point you were making about how the super soul gives direction to each living entity, and also the animals. You were talking about those birds that weave their nest, that it's so beautiful. And you were saying, how do they know how to do that? So I'm just wondering, recently I saw a video clip of the oceans. I didn't want to see it, but I was in the dentist's office and they have the TV right above you, so all you can see is this. So they had a clip on aquatics, and specifically humpback whales. And so they were showing how every year the humpback whales migrate to this place in the Caribbean near the coral reef. But what's unusual is that when the babies are born, they don't know how to swim or dive or anything. The mother has to train them for over a year in this special place, and they have a very close bond. So she teaches them how to defend themselves, how to fight, how to live, because they don't have a clue. And if they were left by themselves, they wouldn't get it. So it's just amazing how his feature as the super soul, how it's so different in so many different varieties of life. So would you comment on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what's inspiring the mother to teach the children, right? That's also the super soul. So, yeah, I mean, whether the super soul is giving knowledge directly or is inspiring one soul to teach another soul, it's the super soul. Any inspiration or direction that we get, or our conscience, that we understand what's right and wrong, what to do and what not to do, that's prompted by the super soul. Yeah. So, yeah, it's very complex and full of variety. That Krishna, he likes variety, and this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world, which is full of variety, unlimited variety. So, yeah, each species of life has a difference in the way that they do their things, the way they learn their things, but ultimately it's all orchestrated, it's all overseen and sanctioned by the super soul. Like Krishna says, Upajastanumantascha. Yeah.
Also, it was so, it was kind of thought-provoking to see, how the scientists are studying these different creatures. And specifically, the male humpback whale will sing. And they've recorded these songs of the whales. And they have like poetry in them. So there seems almost like a bit of human qualities in the animal species as well. because it's these songs that they sing, they're related to mating and their life, and it's like a whole poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very amazing how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is endowing all these living entities with different powers and
Yeah.
abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because the soul is there. And the soul is, the soul still has its own qualities. It's just restricted by the body. And the body imposes artificial limitations on the soul. But still we see that the soul manages to express itself. And the soul has a natural appreciation for beauty, for art, for design. And so we see that, like, a spider makes a beautiful web. We have peacocks, they dance in a beautiful way. Birds, they sing beautiful songs. So, because the soul is a part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is all about beauty. So the soul also, we as souls, we appreciate beauty, and we want to create beauty in the world. We want to live in a beautiful world. So that comes out even in lower species like animals and insects and birds. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for reminding us to remember Krishna. Thank you.
And the super soul is the one who prompts that, oh, this is the way that you are going to make beauty in the world, right? Prompts the spider, you're going to make a beautiful web. He prompts the bird, you're going to sing a beautiful song. So these are also ways. Actually, there's one verse in Bhagavatam that says that when we see a bird, because some birds are very, like peacocks or parrots, birds that are very beautiful, when we see the birds, beautiful birds, then we can remember Krishna as the supreme artist. So as I was talking about that, when you see a work of art, you remember the painter. So whatever beautiful things we see in nature, we can remember the artist, Krishna, who made that beauty in the world. So that's just yet another way that we can remember Krishna in the world. Thank you, Manasacharya. Ajit?
Thank you for such a nice class. I particularly was, meditating on when you said that the Uttamadhikari sees everyone as devotee except himself, because that's still something I'm just trying to wrap my head around. But then, yeah, I said,
Just hold the mic really close.
Okay. Hare Krishna. So I was meditating on how the Uttamadhikari sees, or the Mahabhagavat sees, that everyone is a devotee and serving Krishna in some way except for himself. And that's still very bewildering to me. But I was thinking that